Welcome. Today we're going to talk about creating pages on Zoho Creator. First, we'll take a look at why, if you aren't using pages, you should be. Next, we'll go through the basics of creating a page. Then, we'll take a look at the different elements that can be utilized on the page. Lastly, we'll go through a quick demo where we take the different concepts that we've talked about and put them together in building out a page. So first, why pages? Pages are probably the most underutilized component on Zoho Creator, which in my mind is pretty criminal. They are probably the most useful component as it gives you the ability to affect a lot of the different areas that your users and your customers and the different people that you'll be interacting with through the application gives it the ability to affect their experience. So what's so special? Well, firstly, pages can be utilized to combine multiple different components onto a single view. So basically you could take forms, you could take reports, you can take different metrics and images and whatever needs to be incorporated and place them all on a single page so that everything that your user needs is right there at their fingertips. It gives you better UI control. So instead of going through the traditional navigation through the different lists and toolbars of Zoho Creator, you can utilize buttons and things like that to increase the fun that your users have interacting with the application and ensure that they're more likely to adopt that application into their process. Lastly, you can create what are called dynamic pages. We're going to go through that in a additional video, but basically you can create pages that include design and logic so that as users interact with the page, as they put in different search terms or depending on who's looking at the page, the data on the page can then transform so that it's a more customized view of the information for the person who's looking at it. Here's a couple examples of some pages. Most of these fall into the category of what I would consider more like a dashboard. And that's the typical use case for a page is typically something within that dashboard realm. Here you can see on the left we have our traditional navigation, all of the different sort of drop downs and options included in the application. We then have some metrics about vacation requests, a chart, as well as a calendar that's been built in. So really this is giving you almost an analytics sort of view where you've taken different components and you've put them front and center for an employee on their dashboard. The next example is very similar. Again, another dashboard. Here it's a little bit more curated in the fact that it's only applicable for our user Alvin Edwards. So you can see the different requests that are applicable to him, the different vehicle checkups that he's managing. You can see a few different charts that give you some information. But this is another way that you can take data, put it onto a page, and make it easier for your users and your customers to consume. The last one that we have here is a little bit more complex, but again, in the same sort of realm. Here, we're actually using what's called a image map to make an inspection form more usable. So instead of going through, choosing from a drop down the different area of the vehicle, something that's a lot less visual, here we have an image map where you click on the front of the vehicle, you can click on the side, you can click on the rear, whatever it may be, and once you click on that area of the vehicle, you actually get a list of the different items that are associated with that area so that you can choose which items are damaged and better indicate the condition of the car through a more visual method that's more fun for your inspectors to go through. So next, let's talk about the basics of creating a page. So pages, like all new components, are created through our component creation. So here we have the form, the report, the page, the workflow. When we choose page, we actually get two different options. Similar to the form, when we create it, we can either have a blank page, or we can create it from a template. Now, while I think that the templates are valuable, most of them are directed towards a dashboard sort of view. As you can see, there's a lot of metrics, there's a lot of charts, there's some forms and reports that are being embedded, but the majority of them are really sort of in that analytics, dashboard, metrics sort of area, which is the limitation of the page. It's not just for dashboards. There's a lot of additional pieces that you can build in, a lot of additional functionality, a lot of additional ways that you can affect the look of your application through pages that isn't really translated in these templates. So while templates are valuable and they do give you sort of like the building blocks that you need, and it's easier, you may not be as overburdened by the idea of building from a blank slate by using these templates. They don't necessarily do the justice of the feature-rich sort of pages that can be built within the system. All right, so now that we've taken a quick look at some of the basics, let's go through some page elements and talk more directly to the different types of pieces that you can use in building your pages. So each element, and you can see down the left side, the elements that we're going to go through, each has their own unique options, and we're going to talk about those a little bit and the different ways that you can utilize these elements. We will not be going through the widgets element in this presentation. That one really is used for more custom pieces, incorporating JavaScript and different other front-end sort of, coding languages is really where the widgets come into play, and is a little bit more high level than this presentation is really speaking to. So the first element that we have is our primary one. It's called a panel. It's basically most basic sort of container of a page. It can hold anything from images to text to just color. It can have different data points attached to it for the different metrics. It can have all types of different things can be applied within the structure of the panel, but this is our most basic element and the one that's used most widely. When you configure a panel, you get a few different options. So you've got three different sections here: the display, the action, and the style. Under the display options, you have what's going to be put into that panel. So here we're displaying data, the sum, from one of our forms for the vacation days taken. We then have the ability to filter that, so we can pull from all records, we can pull from selected records, whatever it may be that we need to apply as far as a filter, we can put in there. And then we can change some of the ways that the display is formatted. The next section that we've got is the action. So every single panel can be a button, can basically act as something that you can interact with, whether it's the logo on the page being a link to your home page, whether it's having a coupon built as a panel that takes them to an order form that applies the discounts. Every single panel can be applied with some type of action that can happen once you click on it. And all of that would be set up here in the actions. We'll go through this a little bit more when we talk about buttons, but it's nice, to speak that, each panel can become its own sort of like piece within the interface for your user. Lastly, we have style. So this one's pretty straightforward. I'm sure most of you are pretty, comfortable with the different sort of like font options and things like that. So you have the ability to choose your font. You can apply a style to it, whether it's bold, italicized, underlined. You can choose the color of both the background as well as the text. You can put in the font size. You can change your white space. So do I need bigger margins? Do I need more negative space around the data? All of that can be affected there. And then you can add some additional information with a prefix. Next up, we have our charts. So in the charts, we have a few different styles. Column, bar, pie charts are the main ones. But basically, it gives you some low-level sort of analytical trend spotting sort of components or views that you can add to a dashboard or to a page to give you a little bit more information about where everything stands. Gauges are in the same family. Basically, like charts, it's showing you where things stand, but this one is really measuring it against some kind of goal that you've put in play. Next up, we have our search elements. So these are basically boxes that can be interacted with by your users, whether it's customers or employees. They can type in a search term, and then based on what they type in, we can actually make different things happen. So whether it's filtering a report, it's displaying certain data on the page, search elements come into play, especially when we're talking about like the dynamicism of pages. Next up, we have our forms. So our forms and our reports are going to be very similar. For our forms, basically, we're able to embed a form either as the form or as a button on the page. If you have a leave request for an employee, you could embed it on the employee's dashboard so that they actually don't have to navigate anywhere else to put in their leave request. The buttons act just like the button element that we're going to talk about shortly, but they're preset both with the name of the form that it's going to, as well as the action on the back of the button to take you to that form. Reports are in the same, so you can create or you can embed a report on a page so that it shows up in line with other data that you have, or you can embed it as a button so that when you click on that button, it then takes you to that report and shows you that information. Next up is probably our most customizable elements behind widgets. These are our snippets. So there's a couple different types. The first one is ZML, or Zoho Markup Language. And this is really one of the ways you can create custom views of information that you can then reuse on your pages. We're going to go a little bit more in depth on what ZML is and how to utilize it in a subsequent video. But these are really those more customizable versions of the panel that allow you to incorporate Deluge and other more complex pieces into them, again, leading itself to a page being dynamic. Alongside the ZML, we have an HTML snippet as well. Some people are more comfortable with HTML than they are with ZML, so we have both options available. But the HTML is pretty limited as far as what all can be written into it. So while you get most of the typical HTML sort of tags and style options and things like that, you won't get some of the more complex CSS sort of pieces that you can put on top of HTML in other platforms. Our HTML is a little bit more limited in its use, so you'll have to play around with it to see if it will do exactly what you're looking for it to do. Lastly, we have our embedded. So this is a snippet, but not quite. Basically, it's just a container that you can take an iframe sort of embed code from Creator itself or from a different platform, you can put it inside of this snippet, and then it will show up in line with the other data from Creator or external data that you've put on the page. Lastly, we have our buttons. So these can be utilized especially with interface, with your navigation through the app. Think about how much easier it is instead of going up to the toolbar and going to your drop downs and choosing what you need, to have a button on the page where it makes sense to have it. So, for an employee dashboard, maybe that's launching a timesheet app. It's launching, your leave request. All of those buttons could be put on the employee dashboard and make it easier for them to get what they need done without having to search for it through different toolbars. As you navigate from one page to another, you can have buttons at the bottom or the top of the page that take you back to your home, back to the dashboard, and then there's, all kinds of different things that you can apply to it. They don't just have to take you to something internally to Creator. They can be applied to a third-party website. So if you need to take them out of the Creator ecosystem into something on your web page or something in another complementary system, all of those pieces can be added on the back end of the buttons. They also can kick off different workflows. So these could execute Deluge functions, they could send emails, they could request assistance, whatever these buttons need to do. There is enough built out within the options to allow you to apply those different pieces of the process to each of these buttons. All right, and now we're going to go through a quick demo, sort of going through the different concepts and elements that we just talked about in creating a new page. So we're going to demo how to create a page. So we're in the Zoho Home Appliances application. We're going to go here to this plus. We're going to go to our page, and then we have the options for from a template, as I stated, or blank. So I'm just going to go with blank, make it a little bit easier. One of the processes that we have in this application is gathering customer feedback. So let's create a customer feedback page. All right. So now we've gotten into our page builder. You can see we have this sort of main area where we drag our elements. We've got our different types of elements here on the left, and then we've got some options up here. So here in the properties, we have the ability to change the background color. So if there's any color that we want to use, any kind of branding, anything like that, we can put it in here. Let's say we want to use blue. Also in here, we can allow them to print a PDF or print to an actual printer or add parameters. And we'll be going through parameters in a different video. So if you're looking for information on this, look for building dynamic pages. We also have some ellipses here where we can rename our page, we can duplicate, we can delete. Now that we've got our page sort of set up, we can start dragging in our elements. So let's start with the panels. You can see we have some pre-built sort of pieces. Depending on the layout that we're looking for, there's a few different variations. We can also change the way that it's aligned, so left, center, right. And then we have two different options here, one with backgrounds with color, and then ones with white backgrounds. So let's just grab our basic sort of panel element. We have a few different pieces in here, so you can see we have sort of like the normal container for the panel. We then have a number and then some text. So clicking on each of these changes what our focus is, and we get to affect whatever part of this panel that we want to. So let's start with a title. So we don't need the number. Let's delete this element. We then are just left with the text from that value or that panel that we pulled over. So let's call this Zilker customer feedback. We're going to display as text, and then we can go here to style and change some of the information around it. So we've got only a few different types of fonts, but let's go with Roboto. Let's make it bold. Let's change the color. Maybe we'll go with white, and then make the background color like a darker blue. We can then change the font size. So there's a couple in here, but we can change some of that a little bit more. So let's go with 40 for now. And then we can change some of the margins. So let's say we want 5 pixels at the top, 5 right, 5 bottom, 5 left. So now we've increased our basically our white space around the text. We can then click on the outside of the text element. So here, we can go to style, and we can change this to our darker blue as well to match the rest of the cell. Alright, so then we can hit close, and now we've got our first piece of our form or our page going up. So if we wanted to go back in, we could go here to configure, and we could change anything that we need to. We can also go here into the code. We're going to talk about this a little bit more in some of our future videos about pages, but you can affect anything that you need to here in the back end. So if I wanted this to actually be 48 pixels, I could change it here, and that would affect our panel. We also have the ability to put in a title for our panel if we want to name something. This is more used for like charts or gauges, but we can put it on any of the panels. We can also copy the panel, and finally we can delete the panel. Alright, so let's get another panel, and let's put in a little bit more sort of style pieces. If we delete both of these elements, so not just the number but the text, we're left with a blank panel, and this can be used to increase the white space, sort of break apart different elements. If we go into the configure and we go to our code, we actually have padding here that's automatically built in. We go in, we can change that padding to, like, let's say 10. We can hit save, and then when we go out, we've then made that panel a little bit smaller to make that line a little bit more fine, so that it looks more like an element detail instead of just a blank panel. Other things that we can do with the panel, so if we pull another one in, we don't just have to use the elements that are here. So let's delete a couple of these. We can actually open up this piece, and then we've got a bunch of different things that we can put in. So if we want to put in some preset sort of numbers and style, we've got a few things here for our text as well as some numbers. We've got image. We can put in some icons. We've also got some buttons. So let's actually put in an image. So let's throw in a large image. We've got the ability to choose what our image source is. So do we want the icons? So basically our built-in icon library. We have both outline and solid. We can choose a web link. So if you have a URL for an image that you want to use, you can throw that in here. But I'm actually going to upload one. So let me hit my upload. Let me go to my downloads, and we'll just take this appliance image. Alright. Now we've got this image here. We can go to our style, and we can change some information about it. So we've got our shape, square, rounded, or circle. Let's just leave it as square, but we'll go to custom. So this will give us the ability to change the dimensions of the image. So let's say we want the width to be 280 and the height to be 480. That's a little stretched out. Let's say it's 380. Alright, maybe it is a little bit more of a square than I'm thinking, so let's do 320. There we go. Alright, so we can affect whatever that width and height is. This image is actually a PNG, meaning that there's a transparent background, so I can affect what color the background is. Not every image is going to have that ability. It sort of depends on the type of file that you put up, but I can make it white to match this, or I can change the colors around and make the entire box a different color so that it doesn't look out of place. So let's throw this in here. Now we've got sort of an image, but you know, maybe that doesn't look all that great style wise. We can configure it, maybe pull another panel in, put it here to the side. Let's delete our element, and let's make our background that dark blue. Then we have two columns, and we can sort of change this, change the width of that column, just to give us some more spacing. So you can see we now have a few different panels on here, image, text. We can, you know, change what all of this is if we wanted to. We could copy this a couple times and then just give us a few different windows. Maybe we wanted to put some additional information in here. Maybe we wanted to do some metrics or something like that. Depending on how you wanted to utilize this, all of that could be changed. We don't really have any charts or gauges that we will want to add to this, so I'm not going to put any in, but we do want to put in a form. So if we go here to the form, we look for our feedback, we can then embed this as a form. So now we've got our form in here. We can also, if we wanted to, move our form up. So let's delete all of these, and let's grab our form and throw it in here. So now our feedback form is basically in line with our image, and that's going to give us a little bit better sort of design pieces, so that it doesn't look as flat, it doesn't feel as empty of a space. So maybe we want to take this, copy it, throw it here at the bottom, and maybe copy this guy as well, configure, delete our element. Alright, and now we've got the buildings of sort of a custom page that makes it a little bit nicer when our customers land on it to enter the feedback that they have about our product. So let's hit done, and then let's access this so that we can see exactly what this looks like. So now we've got our page, we've got, you know, a pretty good layout. Obviously all of this can be changed, can be customized. The best way to sort of get a handle on it is to just play around with the builder and see what kind of styles you like and different pieces. So thank you very much, and I hope you learned something from the demo. Alright, so in today's video, we went through why you should be using pages, how easy it is for you to create a page, the different types of elements that are in play when you're building your pages, and then I went through a demo of putting together a page within Zoho Creator. Hopefully you learned something from this, and we see a lot more usage of pages in the future. Thank you.